Where is my foghorn?
He's hanging out with Leghorn.
I had my foghorn up.
I can do it.
Good evening, and please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page 80 before taking drastic action and will end on page 82 where it says face-to-face combat. Our study tonight will start on page 82 if we have no such complication and will end on page 83 where it says we don't crawl before anyone. And do we have any announcements tonight?
None from me.
Doesn't look like it. We do have a group conscience. Our next one is scheduled in October. And we will let you know about that as it gets closer and each week up until. So, Aaron, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I'm a recovered alcoholic, and my name is Aaron. Welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as not to distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are focus your breath and posture. Breathe in God and breathe out self. Take this time to
Go ahead.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
Let's bring in those cute little monks.
Fog light prayer?
Yes, sorry. No, meditation, monks.
I apologize.
Let's have our fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those who are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And now it's time for our secretary's report. Come on in, Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name's Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and I'm your alcoholic secretary. And I have asked Larry to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and exactly what it means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Larry. You're muted, Larry.
Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we're not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you for your service tonight, Larry. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before we start the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and be ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of that, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% sobered up at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and the remainder who stayed on with AA showed great improvement. Can we have a show of hands of the people joining us for the first time? And we've got a couple of new people in the room, so welcome Benita, and I believe it is Tom that is also joining us for the first time, so we are glad to have you here with us tonight. Thank you so much for coming. And the hands of the recovered alcoholics, please. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? Stephanie is.
Yay.
What you got, Steffi?
Hey, I'm Stephanie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And today is my 4-year sober-versary.
Wonderful.
Praise be to God.
Amen. And here comes your chip.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There you go.
Never saw that one. Beautiful. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being part of our family, Steph. Are there any other milestones that need to be recognized? Trish has one coming up, but she'll just have to keep coming back. If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo or PayPal, or what's posted in the chat. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you, and see you next week. Thanks for letting me be a service, folks.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And from Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 2. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 3. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on in, Nicole.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'm an alcoholic, and I will be your traditionalist for tonight. And tonight we will be looking at Tradition number 3. The short form of this tradition is the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. The long form of this tradition is our membership ought to include all who suffer from alcoholism. Hence, we may refuse none who wish to recover, nor ought AA membership ever depend upon money or conformity. Any 2 or 3 alcoholics gathered together for sobriety may call themselves an AA group, provided that as a group they have no other affiliation. So what this tradition means to me is it's so vitally important that no matter who you are or where you've come from or how far down the scale you've been, or what you may have done in your past, you're always welcome and a member if you have a desire to stop drinking. This is such an important tradition that they have included in our preamble. So this tradition is in place so that even if someone is doing other substances, they will not be turned away or felt not welcome or judged, as long as a desire to stop drinking is there. We are to let God be our judge. This tradition means that we cannot judge a person by where they have been or how they speak or what their background is like, their beliefs, because we in turn, if we turn someone away, that could cause them harm and feel abandoned by AA, and who are we to judge? So if this is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, non-alcoholics should not be sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And in our group here, we stick to the purpose of helping one alcoholic and have recovery one day at a time, and all the other traditions here. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be of service.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Nick. Well done.
Great job on Traditions 1, 2, and 3. And next week, we will have a new traditionalist coming in for Traditions 4, 5, and 6. And we do these in a 3-week rotation. And if you're interested in taking a rotation, please let me or Jamie know by chat, and we will let you know when the next opening is.
Awesome. And now it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows is one of the things we often hear, along with what the Big Book has to say on the subject. One of the things we hear is, alcohol was my drug of choice.
Nancy.
Nancy, thank you, Trish. And Nancy, can you tell us what it says on in the book on page 24, paragraph 2.
Nancy, you're muted.
Okay, the fact is that alcoholics for reasons yet obscure have lost the power of choice in drink.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide, prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight, we're going to start our recap on page 80, which will be read tonight by Lisa. And following that, our study portion will be read by Linda.
Yeah.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that was read by
Linda.
Lisa.
Linda.
Linda. I'm sorry. The answer will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply one sentence answer, split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share it. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the page's study, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol. Through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And let's take a quick moment to look at how we arrived at this point, because we don't just randomly open the book to a page and say, this is what we're reading. This group is in our 4th year of this study. We start on the title page and we read all the way through page 164. We also then read Dr. Bob's Nightmare, the Traditions, and we read Appendix 2, the Spiritual Experience, 3 times as part of the study. And we finish out our study, our 94th week in the study, with the Spiritual Experience also. And then when we get to the end, we go back to the beginning and start all over. We're in our 3rd season, or our 3rd time of going through the book, and we're on week 51 tonight. So we're just a little bit over halfway, but then when we get done, we'll go back to the beginning. And each time we go through, I always learn and see new things.
Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and our YouTube channel.
And Lisa, come on in with our recap, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa, I'm an alcoholic. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, ask God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink. This brings to mind a story about one of our friends. While drinking, he accepted a sum of money from a bitterly hated business rival, giving him no receipt for it. He subsequently denied having received the money and used the incident as a basis for discrediting the man. Thus used his own wrongdoing as a means of destroying the reputation of another. In fact, his rival was ruined. He felt that he had done a wrong he could not possibly make right. If he opened that old affair, he was afraid it would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right did he have to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? After consulting with his wife and partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks than to stand before his Creator guilty of such ruinous slander. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again, and all would be lost anyhow. He attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action met widespread approval, and today he is one of the most trusted citizens of his town. This all happened years ago. The chances are that we have domestic troubles. Perhaps we are mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. We doubt if, in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. But drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. After a few years with an alcoholic, a wife gets worn out, resentful and uncommunicative. How could she be anything else? The husband begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with a girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him. Whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. More than that, we cannot do. We have no right to go further. Though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found the best course to take. Our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person open who she can vent jealousy. Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide that the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. And Linda, come on in with our study portion tonight. You're muted.
If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But if he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated, passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted, selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is a nut. He is like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife he remarks, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" Yes, there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless the one's family express a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual manners. They will change in time, and our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter, and there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet and we don't call before anyone.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Lisa, both for your service tonight. For our answer readers, please speak clearly into your microphones. We'll ask the questions from our script by Joe and Charlie and Trusty Cliff. The answers to the questions will be sentence by sentence coming directly out of this week's study that Linda just read, beginning with that first sentence and ending with the last one she had. If those answering the questions lose their place, please allow the question reader to direct them to the correct sentence. And our batting order tonight for questions will be Art, Nancy, William, Jamie, and Steph. And please go ahead and unmute if you haven't already done so. And Aaron will be coming in with a few comments throughout the questions. So Art, our first question to you. If infidelity is not an issue, are we home free?
If we have no such complications, there is plenty we should do at home.
Thank you. And Nancy, what really stupid thing do we all too often hear from an alcoholic? 2 sentences, please.
Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly, he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't.
Thanks so much. And William, where is he with regards to amends to his family?
But he is yet a long way from home. He doesn't, but he's a long way from home, making good to the wife and the parents for years. he has shockingly treated.
Thank you. And Jamie, what passes all understanding? 2 sentences, please.
Passing all understanding is the patient mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead.
Thank you. And Steph, the alcoholic is like what?
The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others.
We sure are. And Art, coming back to you, what are some of the results? 3 sentences, please.
Hearts are broken. Sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted.
Thank you. And Nancy, what has caused disharmony in the house?
Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil.
Yes, they have. William, an alcoholic is really unthinking when he says what?
I feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough.
Thank you. And Jamie, what analogy do the first 100 give us to help us see the havoc we have caused?
He is like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined.
Thank you. And Stephanie, what did the farmer say to his wife that got him in big trouble? 2 sentences, please.
To his wife he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?"
Yep. And Art, back to you again. What lies ahead?
Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead.
Thank you. And who must lead the way, Nancy?
We must take the lead.
Thank you. William, is an apology sufficient?
A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all.
It does not. And Jamie, a 2-part question. What should we do and what should we not do?
We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them.
Thank you. And Stephanie, if they are messed up emotionally, who may be partly to blame?
Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible.
And coming in with a comment, the following is the 4th, 9th step prayer. It deals with our family.
Thank you, Aaron. And Art, that comes to you, and it's a 3-part question. So what do we ask? When do we ask? And for what do we ask?
So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in our meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love.
Thank you. Nancy, what is not a theory?
The spiritual life is not a theory.
Thank you. And William, what must we do?
We have to live it.
We do, thank you. Jamie, what if the family doesn't care for our program?
Unless one's family... Are 2 of us talking at the same time?
Oh, I got him. Go ahead.
Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not urge them.
Thank you. And Steph, what should we not do?
We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters.
Thank you. And Art, is there hope for them?
They will change in time.
They will, thank you. And Nancy, what will make an impression on them?
Our behavior will convince them more than our words.
Thank you.
And comment, again and again, we are reminded that this is a program of action.
Thank you. And William, what must we remember?
We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness will make a skeptic out of anyone.
Thank you. Jamie, can we right all wrongs?
There may be some wrongs we can never fully right.
Thank you. And Steph, we don't worry about the wrongs we can't make right if what?
We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could.
Thank you. And Art, how do we make amends to those we cannot see?
Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter.
And comment. In the 1930s and 1940s, we did not have the means for communication we have today. Telephone, email, etc. That said, face-to-face is still the best, whether in person or on virtual platforms. However, because of the nature of texting and misunderstanding through text, texting may not be an effective form of making amends. And last comment, while social media may be an appropriate way to find someone, would it be wise to post an amends on someone's social media page? Probably not, as it could harm them or others.
Thank you. And Nancy, can we postpone in some cases?
Yeah.
And there may be.
And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases.
Thank you. And William, if a delay can be avoided, do we wait?
But we don't delay if it can be avoided.
Thank you. And Jamie, in making our amends, we should be what?
We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping.
Thank you. And Steph, our final question. As God's kids, we do what, and what do we not do?
As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone.
Thank you so much. And now we will open the floor for sharing. If you have experience with the portion of the book that was just read, please feel free to share. And please be mindful of your time and others that may have their hands raised and are waiting to share. And a friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. And we're now open for comment, questions, observations, and spiritual experiences on what was just read. So who's gonna come in first? We'll have another moment of meditation while we wait.
I'll go ahead and come in, Trish.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, family. My name's Jamie. Very grateful, recovered alcoholic. Amends with family is often very, very difficult, especially in the home, because it deals with matters of the heart. It deals with, in many cases, a dynamic of where it's not somebody that I might not see for the next 5 years, but it's somebody that I have to live and interact with every day. So it can be very, very difficult. And it can oftentimes be very painful. And the truth is we don't always know what to do. In all honesty, in my experience, I can't plan what the approach is going to be. I can have a recognition and an idea of my part in things and the things that I have done. But if I'm going into this process with amends, I'm screwed right off the bat because I have unrealistic expectations. You know, I love just the next to last sentence. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. If I go through this process, especially with family, of I got to be willing to take my lumps. I got to be willing to be beaten up with a broomstick in this process, and I got to take every whack that they're going to give me and not react negatively. Some of the things that I did in my disease are indefensible. So if I'm trying to make an amends, why would I try to defend it? And I can't sit there if they're having a bad reaction and go, yeah, but you did this and it made me do this. I can't do that. It is not a healthy way of making amends. My sponsor taught me a very interesting concept, a practice that I've used through the years in early sobriety. Because in early sobriety, sometimes even in long-term sobriety for some of us, communication doesn't work well if our significant others aren't willing to learn how to communicate as well. And everything gets taken personal and all of that stuff. So my sponsor gave me an extremely important tool. He said sometimes when you had a scrap with the significant other and you can't hear each other because the actions are so loud that I can't hear the words that the other person is trying to say. That comes from Rick Walsh. It is oftentimes best to just write a note or a letter. Not a text, right? But just write a handwritten letter, set it on the table where they can find it and read it at their convenience. What it does is it gives me the opportunity to process what I'm trying to say without having to defend it. It gives the other person the time to process what it is I'm trying to say without them having to be defensive as well. I truly believe this. And this is just my experience. And trust me, I've been in some wackadoodle relationships in my life. But if we are willing to own our side of the street and take the actions that are necessary for us to take, that there can be healing in a relationship. When I was newly sober, there used to be a little fella at the Atlanta Club. He said something so wise. If I do the God work and I let my wife do the, or if I do the me work and I let my wife do the her work, and we let God do the God work, everything will be as it should be. Does that mean we're going to be together? Nope. Does it mean we're going to be apart? Nope. It means, though, that we have a pathway to move in the direction that is good and healthy for our lives, that God will. You know, I made lots of promises in my life. The problem with those promises is I never took the actions to back them up. My first wife from 49 years ago still carries the pain of something that I did, something that ruined our marriage. I made the mistake of saying, there's this really cute girl at work and she smiles a lot and I don't know how I feel. Being an untreated alcoholic, I made it all about me instead of making it all about my wife and my child. And the consequences that came with that were separation from my daughter for 32 years. And that has been a long road of healing for about the last 14 years. It may never be the way that I hope it will be. But I still have to take the action to do my part. My first wife and I don't really talk, but we do send each other birthday wishes. And my hope is that that continues to plant seeds and give a pathway to forgiveness. I have to go into all of this amends work with a spirit of forgiveness in my heart. I cannot go into an amends with any kind of resentment or animosity in my heart, because I will kill it before it even gets started. And again, I have to be willing to take my lumps. And today, because of our steps, because of our program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because of this step, I get to claim responsibility and own it instead of ducking and running for cover. That's a pretty good deal in my life. And when I lay my head on the pillow today, I know there's not a soul in this world I'm angry at. There might be a few that are angry at me, but to the best of my ability, I have done my best to clean my side of the street and take responsibility for my actions. Responsibility equals accountability. And that is truly a blessing. Thank you. Love you all.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, Larry. Come on in. You're muted.
I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, I've had some experience in this, mostly with my family, our relationships. My first wife, I owed a whole lot of amends with. I stepped out on her so many times during our marriage that I lost count. I lost that marriage, you know, and she ended up divorcing me, not because I stepped out on her, but she stepped out on me, and it's kind of ironic, but I talked with my sponsor about that after coming into Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, the funny thing, because us alcoholics are just selfish. I was still sore and still mad at her for how could she step out on me, but the fact is, after going through the program, going through all the process of everything, he finally reeled me into sensibility. And he said, "You owe that woman an amends." And I said, "Well, how can I give her an amends without, I don't know how." And he said, "Well, you certainly can't tell her what you did. Since she doesn't know what you did, but you owe her amends, and God's going to have to open that door." And I think I've shared this, so I'm not going to go into a history of it. So down the road, God did open that door for me, and I was able to make an amends to that woman without going into detail. At the time, she needed to hear that amends because she was going through something. And, and she was able to accept the amends. And we're friends today. I lost all chances of ever getting back with her because she realized that I had went out on her at least once, and I could not tell her how many times because that would destroy her, but she knew, and that helped. That helped her process the breakup of the marriage, and she needed to know that. So God did open the door. When the time, it was several years later. I couldn't believe that God opened that door, but he did. And my sponsor was right, that God had to open that door. My third wife, when I had to make an amends to her, I wasn't sure how that was going to turn out. Because she literally hated me. But my sponsor said I owed her an amends. Somewhat like Jamie, it was probably a week after our honeymoon, she asked me a question. Asked me, do you wish that you had not divorced your first wife? It was a kind of a loaded question, maybe in some sense. And I thought about it, and I said, in my thinking, I answered the question honestly, to say, yeah, I wish I hadn't, because the kids wouldn't have had to go through divorce. I would have still been with my wife, and the family would have been together. And that's all I was thinking of. I wasn't thinking of my third wife. And when I answered yes, she took that answer as I was still in love with my first wife. And I can't say for certain that she wasn't partly right at the time. I never thought of it. That wasn't why I was answering the question yes. But because of that, my sponsor felt I did owe her an amends because I answered that question yes, and she took it that I was still in love with my first wife. My marriage, after a week from the honeymoon, it did not survive. It was almost doomed to be over with. She never could get over that answer. And it was, jealousy was rampant from that time on. But I started the ball rolling when I answered that question. So my sponsor said, you owe an amends. And I didn't want to make that amends because, but I had to be willing. I had to find a way for God to make me well, and so I did. And I made the amends, and I talked with her. And when I did, she came back and she told me a lot of stuff I didn't want to hear. But I had to hear it. I had to listen to it because a lot of what she said was true. I had neglected her. I had stopped communication with her. I didn't want to listen to what she had to say. I'd walk away. I did a lot of things, and I had to stay there and listen to what she had to say without retaliating, without coming back and telling her what I thought all her problems were and all her defects were. And I did. And I said, well, I am just sorry how things worked out, and I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. And I walked away, and I'm not sure that she took the amend. I'm not sure that she accepted the amend. But I made it, and that's all that Alcoholics Anonymous required. I felt lighter because of it. I felt like I had done what was required of me. My sponsor said that it satisfied what he required, and I moved on. And you know, there were other relationships that he felt like I couldn't make face to face, and so he had me write letters. Some were relationships. One was my father. He was dead. Others were relationships that if I would have tried to make it face to face, would have drug up stuff that my sponsor felt like would hurt them worse than me making the amends. So we wrote letters, and I remember after writing the letters, I read the letters one by one, and we made a bonfire, and after reading it, one letter, I would burn that letter, and the ashes would go into the little hole that we had in the ground, and then I would read another and another and another and another. I had a lot of stuff, and those ashes I buried, and we dealt with those kind of things that way. I felt better afterwards, but I was a messed up person. I wasn't a good person when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous, but AA's taught me to be better. I'm a better person today. I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. Bye.
Thank you, Larry. Hi, William.
Hello, everybody. My name is William Alcoholic. Thank you so much for the meeting tonight, and thank everybody for tuning in. So, whenever we read stuff like this, I get a chance to reflect in my beginnings and where I'm at today, and I was clueless when I was going to this part of the program. So it was a lot of meetings, a lot of literature, and a lot of people shared to get me where I'm at today, and I thank God for that. Thank God for all of that. Because alcoholism doesn't have a program designed to live it. Not only for the family, the job, the street, the community. Everywhere I go, I can practice this shit. And one of the things a gentleman said to me today, he asked me, said, what word is strong in love? And I thought, and he answered, he said, jealousy. That's what they're talking about. It mentioned that in this reading tonight about jealousy. But I remember when I first came in the old time, we talking, it's only 10% what you're drinking, the other 90% of your thing. If you pick up that 10%, it'll swallow up that 90%. And I looked up the definition of the word that we was talking about. It say, this part right here where it say, sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no harm if he doesn't. And so I decided today to look up the word sober. And I Googled it on my phone this night, and it says absent from period absent from alcohol. Then it gave me another one, and it says sober up with coffee, sober up with coffee and stuff like that. And I thought about, what I mean? That was good. So I get a chance to think. I thank God for the spiritual program that sobered me up and gave me something to work with, so I can use a life on life term. And I do like the part over here where it's talking about the devotion in the morning, the spiritual meditation and stuff like that. So it sort of get them ready, prepare me to go out there and deal with life on life term. And I does it in the morning, I do about 15, 20, sometimes 25, 30 minutes devotion. And what I do, I get the inspirational message. Some scripture from the Bible, some from other people said, and it sort of have that recovery process, and I circulate it to people that I know, and it really helps me. And I like the part about, in the beginning, I had began to leave my wife out of the mix. I didn't do anything, so she seen what I was doing, and she would see me sitting there and come over and check my text to see what I was doing and stuff. And so she seen what I was doing. She said, why you don't send one to me? So I brought her into it, because I was thinking just more recovery people, but it works for human being, period, and that's what I like about this program. Whenever they first started out, it was just for alcoholics, anonymous, for anybody who needed, but whatever human issue you have, they change it from alcohol and use the name, whatever the issue that you want to use. And definitely, I like the part about asking God for that, being patient. And when I implore God to help me to do things, there's something about doing that. It sometimes like magic. It takes me right out of the program, and I learned a lot of that by coming here. Just try to get out of the book. Just try to get out of the book. Because it seems like the first day come out, my a lot of time is that pointing fingers and stuff, judging people, but I start forgetting the right word when I do that. And most of the time I start forgetting. But I noticed not only that work with alcoholic, that works with other human beings too. Instead of pointing out some negative to them about their character, try to show something another than caring about that. And that starts some dialogue going, and that starts some communication there, So I'm grateful for this program. I thank God for it every day. I don't know what my life would be even without a drink if I didn't have the spiritual program. Y'all ain't giving the spiritual program to practice on a daily basis. So I'm happy for that. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Art, come on in.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And since we're talking about step 9, I think it might be well to revisit what the step actually says. It says we made direct amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So when it comes to the amends making process, I have to look at what I have done, not what anybody else has done, but what I have done. And sometimes those amends are not real easy to do, especially when it comes to relationships with family and children and parents and this kind of thing. And left to my own devices, I would probably consider most, if not all, of the amends I owed to be in that category of the exception. And so I discovered that sponsorship becomes important in this process because I have another person looking at it and letting and can let me know those instances where it may be harmful to somebody else, or where I'm just putting it in that category because I don't want to do it. And I still have some issues with that because I don't like to make amends. It's a painful process. However, I know that it's necessary. And I've learned over the years that a big issue of amends, a big part of amends, is the willingness to change. Because if I don't make any changes in my way of living, in my way of dealing with other people, in my way of dealing with relationships, then I will continue to make the same kinds of errors and produce the same kinds of outcomes where it's necessary for me to go back and make an amendment. And so the part of the amends process that allows me to make changes in the way I deal with people and how I handle situations and my attitude towards institutions and various things like IRS and DMV and a few others of those 3-letter entities that we have to deal with from time to time. So if I continue to have an attitude of I don't want to call it rebellion. It's not really a rebellion. But it's more like combative when dealing with situations and other people. Then I'm going to continue to make, to make enemies rather than friends. And when I do that, I then have to recognize that I've done it and then become aware that amends is necessary. So while there are, you could sit here and tell stories about amends making, but that's not really the purpose of this discussion. What we read tonight is an instruction of how to go about doing this amends, how this amends process works, and the prayers that are given to us. If we're not sure, we ask God to reveal. If we're unwilling, we ask God for willingness. And so it's a process that is ongoing, because I'm never going to be perfect. And we get to the 10th step, and it talks about continuing to take inventory, and when wrong, promptly admit it. And there's one little word in there that tells me that I'm not going to ever be at a point where I never make a mistake. That word is when. As you see, if it were possible for me to go through the rest of my life without ever making another mistake, that word would be if rather than when. But because it says when, the implication is that I'm going to make mistakes. And if I have done this 9th step process, amends process, thoroughly and honestly, then the 10th step allows me to stay current. And I don't have to let those things build up over a period of years and then go through this whole process of trying to find a person or trying to make up for something that was deficient in my relationship with them. So that's one of the reasons that this process is so important in the recovery from alcoholism. As is the case from step 1 forward, each step has a basis in the prior steps. And they're all interconnected, which makes it very difficult for me to discuss one step isolated from all the others, because they're not. They're not isolated. They're all interconnected. So, thanks for being here, everybody, and see you next time.
Thanks so much, Art. Linda, come on in.
I'm Linda, I'm an alcoholic. You know, the ninth step, it talks about making amends. It tells me I have to make direct amends. And saying that I'm not ready, you know, that's not a reason for not making amends. I can't use that excuse. You know, today when I say sorry, it's a different sorry. When I say, you know, I apologize, I acknowledge it, it's different now, me being sober, from when I was drunk. It's a different type of amends. I could just say sorry, 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 just to shut someone up, just to get them off my back. And I didn't really care. And my sorry was really a you know what, you. Not going to say the F word, but basically that's what my sorry was when I was out there, when I was active, before the spiritual, mental, and physical transformation. You know, I had a different mindset. But now, if I tell someone sorry, I usually don't say sorry, I say I apologize. You know, so I don't walk through my life being sorry, pitiful. I will tell them I acknowledge what I did. It was rude, it was not right, and I do apologize. And I acknowledge that I hurt your feelings or inconvenienced you. You know, I say it the right way. You know, when I went to Arizona, I was in a meeting, and I heard one guy say, you make amends to people, they don't want to hear sorry. If you owe them money, they want you to pay them their money back. You know, amends are amends. You can't just cover things up. You know, and for me today, my amends is change behavior. Along with that apology is my change behavior. I cannot be selfish. I cannot be inconsiderate. I can't act on self-will. I can't have explosions, emotional explosions. You know, I have to live and let people be who they are, and not waste my time getting into useless, foolish arguments. You know, I have to walk away, I have to bite my tongue, you know, I have to swallow my pride, you know, and I will find myself in less conflicts, and then I will find myself making less and less, you know, amends. And one lady was talking about making amends and, you know, manageability and this and that, and I was like, she dresses really, really nice. She dresses really, really nice. You know, and I thought about it. I said, I'm sure that she has a really, really nice credit card bill. And she shared about it too. She does. And for me, I don't want to keep making financial, you know, amends over and over. You know, I went to school. I have student loans that I have to pay, and I do pay. I can't see myself getting myself into more debt because I'm still being, you know, like that first step, being unmanageable. I had a young lady tell me when we went out, it was a payday. She said, well, what are you spending all this money for? She said, is it a need or is it a want? This was years ago. She was younger than me. She said, no, I only buy what I need. If I don't need it, I'm not buying it. You know, and at this point in my recovery, that's where I am. That's exactly where I am. You know, it's not that hunger, trying to fill a void. You know, and I'm not using anyone, manipulating them to pay my bills. You know, that type of mentality. No. I don't have to get someone in a hostage situation, marry them so they can just pay my bills and this and that. No, that's not where I'm at today. You know, it's less damage. You know, least damage as possible. Do no harm. You know, so my amends today, they're real. You know, they are honest. And, you know, I do it with integrity. And I understand that it's not about me. It never was about me, you know. And the reason why people react the way they do it, it doesn't have anything to do with me. It has a lot to do with them. It really has all to do with them. You know, so I can't take offense on so many things, you know, and get so upset and carry on, you know. I have to be emotionally mature. I have to be emotionally mature. I can't blame anyone. And I know that there's some amends I'm not going to be able to make. And there's some amends that I don't even need to make. It's a misconception with some people. You know, if someone abused you when you was a kid, you don't go to them and make amends for what? You was a child, you was victimized. You hear a lot of crazy things in this. When me and another young lady, we were talking about that, and I said, this is just really crazy. You know, and there's some people that I will never rekindle a friendship or relationship with, no matter what. I will not. They are where they are, and I'm where I am. And it's nice and peace and quiet. I don't need to open up old wounds. I don't need to open up a can of worms. You can't change a person doesn't think there's anything wrong with their behavior. Not that it is my responsibility to change them or even to make them to think it. Some people, it's just a lost cause. You got to just leave them alone. Leave them to their own devices. And I've seen some family members like that. You know, and I've seen some people that I was friends with. I had to leave them to their own devices. I had to let them go. And one person was like, well, you know, even because it was a situation with someone I was friends with, and I stopped the friendship. And they said, but did you get angry with them? Did you this and that? I said, I don't have to go to them and make amends to them for anything. I don't have to go to them and make amends to them for anything. Maybe next year I might realize, oh, there is something you did, you have to make amends. You know, but right now, I'm not opening up Pandora's box. You know, I was told, you know, you got to use discretion when we are making amends. We definitely have to use discretion when we're making amends to other people. You know, and I can't just blurt out and say anything. I just can't. That's not necessary. I can't. You know, some people I just need to leave alone. Some people I can't never make amends to because they died. You know, and I didn't write a letter, but I did sit down and like talk to God and like more or less talk to them. You know, and let them know, yes, you were appreciative. You know, I appreciate you, and I have a lot of gratitude to you in my life, even though I was not the correct person I was supposed to be. You know, just some amends never going to be able to make. You know, but I know today when I make amends, it's different. It's a different kind of amends. It's with integrity, it's with honesty, it's with consideration, it's with compassion. And I'm using my discretion today before I make amends. I'm not perfect. Oh yeah, there's times I have to make amends. Yes. But there's some times when no, I don't need to make amends. You know, I can't be feeling bad for everything I do because I'm not perfect. But then I'm not imperfect. Every time I turn the corner, I'm saying sorry. No, I'm just not going through life like that. But I'm not going to go through life being mean and hurting people either. You know, so I like this step because it tells us we have to use our discretion when we're dealing with people in the situations we're dealing with. Is there amends even that you need to make, that you should make? I made amends to somebody too soon, early in recovery, you know, poor advice from one person, and they ripped me apart. I didn't need to make amends to somebody that's still drinking and out of their mind. I didn't need to even talk to them. So they dumped everything on me and blamed me for everything except the World War II. They blamed me for everything. And I was like, I gotta get off the phone with them. You know, I gotta get off the phone with them. And they come to find out the person was drunk as a skunk. You know, but I had hurt them. And I was sorry about it. You know, and I wanted to make amends. And I was young. I was still in my early 20s. You know, I mean, now I would have known not to call them. I would have known not to call them at all. But then I didn't know. You know, so you really do have to use discretion. You can make amends and end up landing in jail. You can make amends and end up getting hurt physically because that person is not going to be forgiven. You know, one lady shared about how there was a woman that she didn't like. She didn't like her. And she knew her before she came to the AA, and she said, yeah, I had set this lady up to get robbed. She said, but something happened where it didn't go through. And she said she was always afraid to confront this lady. But the lady had came to her and told her. She approached her and she said, I know what you were going to do. She said, I understand what you were going to do, but I had already forgiven you. And that woman's mouth dropped open and hit the floor. And, you know, the woman that she was trying to, you know, do harm to. Years later, she died. And when she told that story, I thought about it, and I was like, wow, this is something. This program is something. And I'm just grateful that I'm sober today, and that I can forgive. Same way if I'm asking someone, telling them I'm making amends, and trying to right the wrongs, I can also forgive too. And a young lady come up to me and she had made amends and she said, well, I'm just sorry because you were trying to tell me something and I was being very disrespectful to you in the meeting. And this was like way long before COVID had started. So it's been a couple of years. And when she approached me, I was like, oh no, not this girl. Not this girl. Oh no. And I had to brace myself, like if she comes out her mouth, it's going to be on. But she didn't approach me like that. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, look at you making amends. I said, thank you very much. And I said, I commend you. You're doing really good. She said, well, my sponsor, I said, you're doing a good job in your recovery. And I said, give me a hug. And we hugged each other. And she had a big smile from here to here. And I had already forgotten. I had forgotten about that confrontation that I had with her a while ago, years ago. But when I seen her, I remembered it real quick. And I said, oh, it's going to be another one. Because she got the nerve to approach me. But it wasn't even like that. It was growth. It was growth and practicing the steps on her part. And I didn't keep a resentment and say, well, you know what you did? I didn't have to do that. I told her, thank you. And I commended her and I gave her a hug. Because it doesn't have to be any strife. Doesn't have to be any conflict. The war is over. Like it says in the 10th step, we have ceased fighting anyone and anything. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. And I'm going to jump in real quick. I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. And there's a guy local around here and he says something that really resonates with me. And there's 2 lines in our reading tonight that tie into that. In the second sentence, it says, sometimes we hear an alcoholic say the only thing he needs to do is keep sober. And a couple of lines down, we feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. And, when I came in here, I had an alcohol problem, yes, but I also had a living problem and a thinking problem. And if all I had was an alcohol problem, my life would have been great once I put down the drink. But my thinking and my living didn't line up or didn't align with God or with anybody else, with the rest of the world, until I started taking these steps. Just because I put the drink down, my life is not going to get better because I still had that living problem. There are lots of things that I didn't learn how to do as a kid that a lot of other people learned. But through these steps and through the work, I was able to learn what those things were, and my life fell into balance. And there are amends that I have made that mostly were always well received. There were some that weren't. There are some that haven't been made, but I know today I am willing to make those amends should God see fit to have that person cross my path. I've looked, I've checked social media, I've checked mutual friends. I don't know where she is, one particular person. But, if God sees fit that I need to make this amends, we will cross paths. There are amends that I put off for years, for decades, because I didn't want to look at my harm. I was too buried in the shame, and I also didn't want to know what the reaction of the other person was going to be. But when I finally made those amends, there was nothing but love. And the shame and the guilt went away because of that love. And, when people come and make an amends to me, there are times that I feel this isn't necessary. But, we still have that conversation, and I thank them. And there are amends in my life that, I would love to see. I don't expect I'm going to see. But again, God may change that. But I have still forgiven the people because I don't want to hang on to it. Because hanging on to it is only going to kill me. I've caused disharmony in a lot of people's lives. I've caused people to have reconstruction needed in their lives. Is there any valid reason to postpone the amends? Only if I don't know where they are. But I truly believe that in those instances, if I am to make those amends, God will see fit to have those people cross my path. And if I'm not to make those amends, then we won't. But those that I can make, those where I know who the people are, today I feel like I've made all of them. I may be wrong. God will reveal that to me. But if that comes up, then I will go through the whole process needed, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th steps to get that willingness, and then I will take that action. Because I don't want to sit on it for myself, but I also don't want them to be living in that pain anymore if a conversation can help relieve their pain. And we are about out of time, so Aaron had to step away. Jamie, are you able to read our closing for us, please?
Yep, 1 second here. I gotta seal up a package for Scuba Pickle here so I can put it in the mail to him.
I know what it is.
Yep. I switched it out so he doesn't know what it is. Just because I'm that guy. From page 164, and this is where we find our 12-step prayer. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for being here and everybody for being of service. We will go ahead and close out, but we do hang out afterwards for fellowship and more sharing. So here at Primary Purpose, since we're not in the same room or even the same time zone to stand around the table and hold hands, we hold our hands up in the screen so that we can connect with each other and pray out. And we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight, either because they haven't found their way to us or because they came and they weren't ready and they left. So we'll take that moment of silence and follow that by the Lord's Prayer. And feel free to unmute if you'd like and join us. Thank you. Who brings us from shame to grace if we let Him?
Our Father,
Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. But lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody.
Folks.
Keep coming back. It works if it works.